Okay, this is The Last Ship, Season 5, Episode 2, The Fog of War. At this point, I kind of really believe that they need to rename the Nathan James into the little ship that could. I get the premise of the show is that the Nathan James is the last ship in existence and it saves everyone. It makes me feel once again glad that this is Season 5 because how much longer can they take this shtick? Yeah, we know now, whatever the Nathan James comes up against, it's over for the supposed bad guy. And what now they're saying makes this ship so great? It's not the ship itself, but its crew. Because the crew of the Nathan James can always think outside of the box. No matter what the problem is, they come up with a solution. It's not that they are not afraid to use violence to solve a solution, but that they think strategically to get themselves into a position where they can emerge victorious. What's good to see about this is, at least at first, we're seeing Cara. Cara's in charge, and it's kind of awesome. Uh, the female characters, unless they were sort of tangentially related to Tom, didn't really get much to do. So I'm really glad to see her in a leadership position. It shows how much she's grown after all the stuff that she's been through with the crew. And the writers even cemented that by giving her a Captain Kirk-like speech to say. Thankfully, the actress didn't do the pauses. Tom. Tom is at the base and he's all rah rah, go team. No matter the doubts, he's convinced that his team is going to make it through. He never ever expresses any kind of doubt. His level of certainty is just whoa. But then I guess when you have writers there to make sure your team does go ahead, um, this happens. So since the attack, things have not been static. Central America wants all of South America to join this effort. Mexico, however, the leader of Mexico has come out condemning this attack and siding with the United States. As we know, the U.S. and Mexico are huge trading partners. Anyway, there's a base in Mexico which the American military uses for refueling. And if it ends up in the hands of the Central Americans, they'll be able to just steamroll their way across the border. So this is something the Americans desperately feel that they need to keep safe. The issue being that plans that have been drawn up in advance for the protection of this base involve an entire fleet, and of course, all they have is the Nathan James. This, however, does not seem to be a problem to Tom, and he's quick to shoot down his counterpart in the army, who has their doubts. So the Nathan James, it makes its way through the big battle, ends up ahead, and now it has to get in contact with Tom and let him know that they're good to go. Of course, the problem being with all of the technology down, they don't really have a secure channel. There's no way to make sure that no one else is listening. So what happens? They use Moby Dick. They use Moby Dick to communicate, and this is not just a throwaway. We know that Tom was teaching Moby Dick in his class last week before all hell broke loose, and Slattery has no love of Moby Dick. But it shows how close these two men are that one can just say your favorite book, this page, and the message is received and understood. I kind of like that. It was a little bit subtle. Let's talk about Panama, where a team is into the jungles. And they run into a band of men, but of course it turns out they're led by Danny's friend. So things are okay for a bit. They travel along with Pablo, and then they get ambushed in front of. They get ambushed. Danny and Pablo are separated from the team. So it's seen straight out of a movie. Everybody's lined up on their knees, and uh, I guess the rebel or the Central American, I don't think they actually named him, start shooting to get people to answer his questions. And of course, Danny's friend Pablo is shot right in front of him before the team can double back and rescue them, which they do. I'm also going to point out that Azima was hurt in this battle, and they better not use this as an excuse to sideline her. Um, so they vow to keep moving on and to stick with the mission. Danny in particular, is vowing to do this for his friend. So I know I'm gonna pause here, and I'm just gonna sort of wonder, when the hell does anyone on this ship have PTSD? I think this is really important. If you think about everything that this crew has been through in the last 5 years, it's reasonable to assume that they would be suffering from PTSD. Okay, so I'm really, really disturbed by that, because it would seem to me that after everything that they've been through, someone would have some sort of breakdown on a ship. And I know that they're trained, and the idea is that Danny should be able to compartmentalize this on the spot. But I'm not really buying it anymore, because it's been trauma after trauma after trauma. There has been no break, and the entire purpose of Danny not, deciding to soldier on was all about hypermasculinity and toughness and, rah rah, the American guy kind of deal, which makes it a little bit toxic to me. And I understand the very concept of pushing forward and not thinking about things until you have the time and the space to break down, and that there is no time and there is no space to break down. But the uniformity with which it happens, I find really, really disturbing. Um, there's been a long history of soldiers having breakdowns right in the middle of battle, and yeah, the Nathan James crew is seasoned, but the fact that it's never happened, I am not really, really good with this. And I think this belies what we know to be the real experience with vets, who many of them come home with horrible PTSD and have the inability to completely function and just shut down. So, along with promoting this agenda about a strong American military and America as savior of the world and the most powerful and the most inventive and the most ingenious and all the other crap that comes along with this show, I really think they're just doing a disservice to vets altogether by not showing that there's an emotional cost to what these people are seeing, an emotional cost to what people are doing. I don't think you can just get up and kill somebody or watch somebody you care about die right in front of you and be able to just push that to the side like it's nothing. I think you're haunted by it. I think that you should be sleeping at night and waking up with terror at it. I mean, I really, really take issue with this, and the more I think about it, the more upset I get. Um, so I think this is why it's so important to watch things critically, because we know that there are going to be a bunch of people who are watching this even now, and the patriotism will be booming, and then look, big ships and explosions and guns and all this other jazz, and not really take in the message that this show is promoting, which I think is toxic and harmful from so many sides. Really, it is so toxic and harmful, and at least in this case, a little ahistorical to boot too. So I'm glad that this is the last round for the last ship, because I think I've just about had enough.